How about this? Live streaming in the fancy Tesla, self-driving Tesla. um, Before we get started, just a quick shout out to the sponsors of the Daily Drive. This is a live daily drive that I hope you watch anytime you want to watch. It'll be just like the other show. But again, Tonquin, great company. Check out Tonquin. They're fantastic. It's a great app. It's a great way to earn some side hustle money in addition to Uber and Lyft. Real quickly, shout out to rideshare.tax. They're if it's tax season, have you filed your taxes yet? Contact Amir and his team at rideshare.tax. They're great. And then Voom Rideshare Insurance. It's why pay for more insurance that you really need. So again, thank you to the sponsors of the Daily Drive. So today's Daily Drive, big news, right? Minneapolis. The city council overturned the veto of the mayor, and they have a minimum wage. So that's big to do, right? So let's talk about the pros. The pros to the Minneapolis minimum wage is that drivers push back against the behemoths of Uber and Lyft. and those companies deserve it, by the way. I know it seems like sometimes I'm an apologist, pro Uber, whatever it might be, but without a doubt, the companies Uber and Lyft deserve whatever kind of like crap they get from the governments and whoever else. So let's just put that out there. Big win. Congratulations to the drivers. They decided they wanted to do something and they did that. Now let's talk about the downside. So I see there's 3 of you watching. Please give me a shout out. Make a comment. If you make a comment, I'll respond to your questions. But let me just kind of get through a little bit of my thoughts on Minneapolis and minimum wage and drivers uniting. First, basics. Minneapolis minimum wage in terms of economics. If you've ever taken a macroeconomics course, one of the first things you're going to learn in the first few weeks are supply and demand curves. And they typically use minimum wage, a price floor, right, as a way to show you how minimum wage or the supply and demand curves move. And one of the things that happens with the minimum wage is there's this idea of like the people that get the minimum wage feel like they're going to make more money. However, it floods the market because more people think they can make that money too. I mean, I'll give you an example. Let's pretend minimum wage per mile in Minneapolis was $1,000 a mile. And it's exaggerating to make a mathematical point. How many people do you think would want to become a rideshare driver if they knew they could make $1,000 per mile? No, I think in Minneapolis it was like $1.20, right? So I'm exaggerating to demonstrate the math behind a minimum wage. But when the price increases, and that's a wage, right? Per mile, per minute, per whatever, it increases supply and supply of drivers. So the first thing that I think is going to happen is the drivers in Minneapolis are going to make a little bit more money, assuming Uber and Lyft stay. And then the market will continue to get flooded with more drivers. And that's my economic prediction of that. And I don't want to belabor it too much. I know some people feel like Seattle is the mark. That's what we need to be at. But there's something more important here that just really sticks with me about this. What sticks with me that I can't stop thinking about when it comes to drivers uniting is the pictures of the drivers that were in the room celebrating when the law, the veto was overturned. And those people, 20, 30 of them, I don't know how many were there, they seemed really happy. And then I thought, like, How many drivers are in the Minneapolis market? 5,000, 10,000? And do that group of drivers, do they represent all drivers? No, right? They don't. Um, and so that's the thing that galls at me. How the idea that a handful of people can represent everybody. And now we do that from a legislative standpoint, right? We have a representative government and stuff like that. But even those people, the drivers that were in the room negotiating with the legislators and Uber and Lyft for this new law or whatever it might have been, they weren't elected. They weren't chosen. They just were drivers that stood up, and I understand that. And they were active, proactive in whatever they were doing. But they don't represent me. And that's the thing that kind of speaks to me as a rideshare driver, as a gig worker, as an independent contractor. I'm me. You're you. You have different needs than I do. You have different fares that you want. There's a myriad of things that are out there. It's like we're all unique individuals. And there's no way that those drivers that decided to become a union of some kind. I mean, I'm not union, it's maybe not the right word. This um, organization of drivers, no matter how big they are, they don't represent everybody, and that kind of goes with any law. There's a compromise, winners and losers with any law, and here in New York, we now have a law, right, a minimum wage law, and I don't want that law. I didn't ask for it. I just showed up one day. And the drivers that celebrate it, good for them, right? I'll take that if that's what they want. But they are forcing their way upon me. And I think that's the part that kind of really gnaws at me. It doesn't sit right. It's like they didn't like their relationship with Uber and Lyft for whatever reason, and good reasons maybe. They didn't like their relationship with Uber and Lyft. They felt like they could get something better from Uber and Lyft. So they organized, not with every single driver, and now it's like out of the blue, I'm obligated to live under their rules. They're forcing their way into my life, and so that's the way I feel about the Minneapolis law. So again, kudos to them for getting it, and I don't blame them for doing what they're doing, I guess, but they did force their way into me and in my life, and I'm not in Minneapolis, but it happened in New York, right? So there's that. So let's see here. Danny says, if it was $1,000 a mile, so many drivers would be online. You'll wait months for a job. That's right. How many rides would you actually get? There'd be no rides, right? The price would be too high for passengers. So passengers, what happens again? That's a great point, Danny. When prices, the wage goes up, or the cost of the services go up, our fees as drivers go up, it's going to cause the price to increase for passengers, which means there'll be less people taking trips. So there's an influx of drivers knowing they're going to get a guaranteed wage, and then there'll be less passengers because you've increased the price. So that's really good. PW says, no one should be driving for 50 cents a mile. Okay, don't drive. Nobody's forcing you to drive for 50 cents a mile. Uber really, you download an app, you turn it on, and Uber's like, here, take this ride. Do you want it? So you can't say no one should be driving for 50 cents a mile. Maybe there are people, not me, not you, but maybe there are people that want to drive for 50 cents a mile. Who are you to judge? But I understand your point. It's like you're like, it's below minimum wage, but it's not very fair and all that kind of stuff. Let people decide on their own. You don't have to decide for them. It's saying that Minneapolis drivers think that they deserve higher pay than New York City drivers. Yeah, these people are delusional. Maybe, yeah, maybe. So here's some questions I've got for the group. And Paris, I see you're chat. I'll respond to you in a second. Here's some questions. Would you want a minimum wage? Do you want to unionize? Do you want Uber and Lyft? Alternatively, do you want Uber and Lyft to like pull out of Minneapolis? Maybe show those drivers who's boss. Where do you stand on this? Paris. They put time and effort to try to get better wages. Yes, they did. Fair enough. People who objected could have attended those meetings and objective. I think you may have been in the minority. Yeah, for sure. I agree, Paris. I am in the minority. I might be the only driver against a minimum wage. That's fair. I'll stand on that hill and die. So, and yeah, fair enough. What do you got? What questions do you have? What points do you want to make? I want a fair rate card, says Zav, not something ridiculous like the Minneapolis drivers one. All right. And see that word fair. Think about it. A fair rate card. Who decides what's fair? Right? That's a very subjective thing. What's fair? And a good example would be 20 hours a week, right? I'm driving into town to go turn on my app. I'll be driving for 12 hours tonight. I'm going to go from 4 p.m. to 4 a.m. I'm different than a person driving at 2 in the afternoon in my market. What's fair? Who gets to decide? And what makes us think that these legislators have any knowledge on what's fair? I mean, have you seen our elected officials? Have you seen who's running for president? I don't trust those people for here for nothing. So how are they going to come up with what's fair? See here, I want upfront pricing with a rate card for mileage and time. See, that's what Zav wants. And Zav, I feel you. That's what you want. I don't. And here, let me tell you why I don't like an upfront pricing with a rate card for mileage. That's like going back to the old taxi ways. That becomes more of a first come, first serve type of business. I like the surge pricing, the variable rate card. I like knowing, hey, I'm going to get $10 for this ride, and it's a mile or whatever. But if the exact same ride happens an hour later, I get $11 for it. Okay, that's what I want. And I think Paris is like, well, you could have gone to the government and petitioned them. I'm saying leave the government out of it. Let me work with Uber the way I want to work with Uber. And you can work with Uber or Lyft or start your own company. We can all do our own thing. We don't have to force our will on other things. And he says, well, you'd still have surge if it's busy, addition to your new rate card. Maybe we have a surge. I think we'll have a surge. There's no guarantees, Av. That surge pricing doesn't have to be passed through to us. Uber and Lyft are under no obligation, if they meet minimum wage requirements, to pay us a surge. So, and surges did not exist, right? Surges did not exist in cities with taxis, like New York City. If you were to catch a cab in the 80s, a taxi ride's a taxi ride. First come, first serve. If you're out there waving it down, you get the ride. But if there's 100 people out there waving it down, it's not like you're going to get the ride. There's no surge pricing. Surge is a function of what Uber put into the game. So, and GoGig says, I like Zav's idea. See, there you go. Everybody has a different, unique idea how they want to operate. And a government solution, some people will think it's good, but some people will think it's bad. It's government, the power of the state, picking winners or losers. And maybe the drivers that were in that room, to Paris's point, hey, you know what? They were in the room, they get to win. But what if it was a driver that couldn't make it to the negotiations for whatever reason? Was it fair to them? They didn't want this minimum wage. They just couldn't make it. Or they weren't big enough donors, right? They didn't find an attorney or a union organizer that agrees with them or whatever. Just tough luck. Tough luck. So that that's why it's a. I had a guy commented on one of my tweets, said, Levi, you're not your normal nice person, or something like that. I think he called me dogmatic, and it's true. I'm very passionate about this, um, about me as a free American, a man, a human with free will, living in a free country, getting to do my thing. And I think when people use the power of the state to get their own will over another person or another organization, it's kind of bad. The power of the state, and so that's the way I feel about it. Um, this is a live. I want to get some more of your comments and some of your feedback here. What do you got? There's a bunch of you here online. I'd love to hear your thoughts and your feedback. Was it good what happened in Minneapolis? Do you think, let me ask you this poll question here. Do you think Uber and Lyft are really going to pull out of Minneapolis? What do you think? So did the drivers get $1.50 per mile and 50 cents per minute they wanted? I don't know what they got. I don't know the details of what they got. But it did go through. Basically, what happened was the oh my gosh, they passed the bill, but the mayor vetoed it. But then the city council voted to override the veto. So it is passed. But I don't know if it's $1.50 and 50 cents. I don't know. Danny, no. PW says no or nah. I assume that means you think that. Do you think Uber or Lyft are going to pull out? I don't know. Um, let me ask you this: if you were Uber and Lyft, would you pull out? And think about this: does Uber need Minneapolis? I don't think so. I mean, Minneapolis is a big city, um, but they're a global company. Do they really need Minneapolis? Who needs who more? Do people in Minneapolis need Uber more than Uber needs the people of Minneapolis? I don't know that answer, by the way. I'm guessing probably not. Uber could probably go without being in Minneapolis. One thing that pisses me off, this is Zav says that Uber now hides the surge in my market. Yeah, they do. They do me too. You don't see the amount on the map. You also don't see the details after the trip is complete. They just put a price up to cover minimum wage, says Danny. Yep. Zaf says, you see the overall pay. It doesn't show you a breakdown of how much the surge was. I agree. I had two fares. I'll have to do a video about this, Zav. One was for like $10. One was for $5. They were basically the same miles and time, but there was no surge on them. So I have no idea what I'm making. I don't know the rate card. That is correct. But here's what I do know. I do know that when I took the $10 one, I knew what I was going to get paid. And when I took the $5 one, I knew I was going to get paid. So I don't really care what the miles and the times are. I just want to know what I'm going to get paid. So um, just a kind of a thing. Zav says, you just see the overall pay to the show. It pisses me off that they are being less transparent, yes, over time, which is the exact opposite of what they claim. Yeah, I don't know. I've been driving for Uber and Lyft for 4 years, and I don't know if they're being more or less transparent. I would say they're being more transparent, but they're still hiding the key data points that I would like to see, Zav. Um, I think that, yeah, they're just hiding things, and it is frustrating. But I also check myself, Zav. I think to myself, do I really need to know? Like, so your point about the surge. Let's say it was a $5 trip versus a $10 trip, or 10 or 20 or whatever dollar amounts. Same time, same miles. Why is one more than the other? Do I really need to know? Or is it, I'm about to put a 12-hour shift in. If I can make $500 over the next 12 hours, I don't really care. And what level of passion and energy do I want to put into knowing why Uber's paying me what I'm paying? I think there's a point to want to know, Zav. Um, it'd be interesting to know. Maybe I could drive different times in different places if I knew that data, right? So, but I don't know if it makes me angry. It doesn't piss me off. It makes me intellectually curious. I want to know, like the whole I thing that the whole thing that they hide, the commercial insurance thing, right? That kind, it doesn't piss me off, but it's kind of like I know you're hiding something in there, and you're what are you doing? Let's see what Paris says. Paris says, look at the Minneapolis situation as arbitration. Okay. I don't think of Uber looks at drivers as assets, but liabilities. That is true. Cutting drivers' pay during the economic times has created bad feelings. Yeah, no kidding. Yes. And if as Paris, yes. The question is, what are you going to do about those bad feelings? Oh, do you guys remember the singer Tina Turner? She was married to a guy named Ike Turner. Um, and I don't know the details of the story too well, but I think Ike Turner was a wife abuser. He hit her and stuff like that. And Tina Turner accepted it for the longest time. And then she finally broke free of that relationship. She went out on her own. That's what I feel about some Uber drivers. Like, okay, Uber is beating you down. They're not beating me down. I'll be honest with you. I make good money. In my market, I'm still good with Uber. But if Uber started beating me down, pissing me off all the time, Zav, the way you are, and stuff like that, I'm just gonna go do something else. I'm driving through this suburb right here, and every freaking job building has a sign "Help Wanted." I can just go get another job. I, I don't have to do it. That's why I left. By the way, that's why I left my previous job to become an Uber driver. I didn't like where I was working. I made more money as an executive at the agency that I was at, but I didn't like it. I didn't. I worked with my boss, my co-founder of the company a little bit. And we tried to like hammer some things out, but at the end of the day, it wasn't a good fit. I just left. If he was abusive to me, the way that people are upset, drivers are upset with Uber, I would have quit like that day. I would have walked out. Be like, screw you, dude. I'm never gonna work for you again. So I don't understand like how drivers can. I don't know. Anybody could do it. Put themselves through pain and torture of an organization that they don't want to work for, that thinks it's screwing them over. Well, why do it? This is like, it's like there's so many people wanting to hire, and jobs that are available. Um, so many opportunities, and I know that's dismissive because a lot of us have invested time and effort to become good at what we do in this trade, um, and it's hard. So I don't want to. I'm not trying to be dismissive of it because it is hard to switch, but we can't sit there and say this company treats me like crap and stick with it. So there's that. Zav says, I agree with you. Do we really need to know? Oh, you're talking about, yeah, the data. Yeah, probably doesn't matter much. Yeah, I just feel like it's being taken advantage of when they start hiding information. I agree with you. I do. I think they hide information to take advantage of us. But as long as I make my number, what do I care? What do I care? Let's see here. By the way, I think Minneapolis needs Uber more than they need Minneapolis. Yeah, I agree. I think if Uber pulls out for Minneapolis for 6 months, Minneapolis is going to suffer, not Uber. The people in Minneapolis are probably in the middle income at best. They will either be charged way more for rides or not have the option. Yeah, it's a lose-lose for the passengers in Minneapolis, no doubt. Yeah, think about this: which passengers are going to suffer the most? Guess what? It's the low-income passengers. They passed this law raising the price of an Uber and a Lyft. Rich people aren't going to suffer. If they want to catch an Uber or a Lyft or get a private car or go drive their car, you and I both know in a lot of our markets, it's a lot of low income people that miss the bus and they're catching an Uber. Now instead of paying $10 or $15 for that Uber or 20, they're gonna pay 25. That sucks, right? So it, it's they're screwing over the little person. Zav says, yeah, I also quit my job to work full time. I enjoy gig work a lot. Just don't want to go back to a W-2. Yeah. And that's the compromise I make. Zav, I'm on the same boat with you, man. I I make less money doing what I do now, but I choose to do it and I enjoy it. That's the compromise. Um, if there was another company out there, maybe I would try that. But Uber is the opportunity that exists for me, and that's what I do. Um, here in the UK, Danny says we get to see every little thing, plus we find our own insurance. Interesting. That's kind of cool. I've thought about getting commercial insurance and kind of doing it on my own. That would be a lot of fun. I think there's a lot of opportunity for private rides. Do you guys know the rideshare professor, Torsten? He's really smart. I like him a lot. I'm not as passionate. I'm the exact opposite when it comes to politics with him, I guess, of rideshare politics. But I like the fact that he teaches drivers to set up their own private company to do private rides. So that's kind of cool, right? Paris says statistically, a lot of drivers drive for Uber because they are in their late 50s and it's harder for them to find work, a W-2 job. That's me. I'm not in my late 50s. I turned 50 this year, Paris. But yeah, you're right. And it's a pretty good gig if you're in your 50s and you just want to make some side hustle money. It's great. Now, if Uber becomes your full-time gig and you're reliant on it to make ends meet, that can be really hard, especially with the lowering of the rates. And Uber and Lyft are screwing themselves over. Again, I'm not here to defend Uber and Lyft. They're gonna run out of drivers. I think maybe not. I don't know. There's a border over there in Mexico and Texas that seems to be pretty porous, and I think a lot of those people are becoming food delivery people. They'll probably become Uber drivers too, right? Go Gig with it says, isn't that what investors want to do? Is to make more money, show more profits if Uber raises its fares? Yeah, that's it. That's the pure economic transaction. Investors want to make money, right? So Uber wants to make money for itself, show a profit. Um, Passengers want to pay the least amount possible, and drivers want to make the most amount. So it's a tug of war between us and the drivers and Uber. And I think in Minneapolis, it seems to me like the drivers won. Let's see what happens. An Uber driver in the UK told me that insurance is only $180. That's also for Tesla Model S. Wow. Um, I have not gone insurance shopping yet, but I pay right around $300 for 3 cars for my insurance. Um, so, uh, any more questions or thoughts on Minneapolis? I don't want to get on it too much. Good for them. They feel like they won something, and I'm okay with that. I do think Uber and Lyft deserve any pain and suffering that they get. Um, I do think that's the case. Let's see. Patrick Sargent says rates used to be higher and riders had no issue. Yeah, but because that was all unprofitable rides, Patrick. My understanding is only recently, right? Uber is finally turning a profit. Lyft still hasn't. They're basically investors. People gave billions of dollars to Uber to buy shares in the company, and Uber was using that cash to pay drivers more and have riders get paid less. They're trying to become a profitable company, be profitable in every single transaction, and that's why this squeeze is taking place. I'm from the UK. I'm paying 3,000 for a Nissan Leaf, 3,000 pounds. I don't know, a year. Okay, yeah, wow. That's for insurance, 3,000 pounds a year. Yeah, okay, I got it. Um, half of the food delivery drivers I see are in Nashville are migrants. Yeah, no doubt. Um, and with the ease of getting a Tesla, you know how many Tesla Uber drivers I see here in Syracuse? So many Tesla Uber drivers. They're getting the rentals right from Hertz, and they're going out, and those guys are driving 70 hours a week, right? Um, that's my market, and I've seen a little bit of a downturn. I don't know. I could be my bubble could be bursting, and we'll see. As here, Mo's Cat Place says, Uber drivers need to stop taking the cheap shares that are not worth it. But see, again, Mo, I understand what you're saying, but you can't define what cheap is for somebody else. You don't know. And I understand if we all sat in a room and rejected all the rides, surge pricing would happen and all that kind of stuff. But it just doesn't work that way. There's a lot of drivers out here that need $100 tonight. It's a Friday night. They just need to go make $100, and they're going to take every $5 trip for 15, 20 minutes because they don't know what they're doing. Okay. But that's what they need. Who knows what somebody else wants? What do you think the take rate should be between drivers and Uber? That's a good question, Paris. What do I think the take rate should be? Well, right now it's about 50% in my market. And I don't think it's really take rate between drivers and Uber that's 50%. I make about 50% of the fare. Um, New York State and the taxes take up a big chunk. Um, that commercial insurance, which I think is a little bit of a scam. I don't know. I don't know if I believe it or not. The number, right, to that Xavier point. What do I think the take rate should be? I don't really think about it that way. I guess Paris, the way I look at it is I want to know how much money I want to know how much money I'm going to make, right? Um, so if I made $1,000 on a night and Uber made $3,000, I wouldn't care. So I guess as long as I'm making good money, Uber can make whatever they want. The minute I start making less, Paris, I'd probably get more upset about what Uber makes. So, fair. See here, true says Moe's, but still they're hurting each other and every other driver. Maybe, yeah, but that's well, I don't want to hurt them. They get to choose what they want to do, and it could be frustrating. I totally get that. Danny says sometimes you need to take the cheap trips to break the boredom. Guys, I take $5 trips all night, all night, and but I do $5 trips, and it takes me 10 minutes to do each one of them. So I'm doing 5 trips in an hour. So that means I'm guaranteeing myself $25 an hour. If I throw in a bonus and the occasional surge, I get a tip on about every 4 out of every 10 rides. My average tip is going to be $5. I'm making pretty good money taking $5 trips, Mo. Now, if I took $5 trips that were 30 minutes long, that's a different thing. But $5, if I see $5 in 10 minutes, I'm going to eat that sucker up all day. So I'm the one probably screwing Mo's algorithm. Sorry, Mo. But I'm making good money. I'm averaging $41 per online hour this year, starting 2024. But granted, I'm starting at 4 p.m. and I'm going to drive to 4 a.m. So, um, so I'll put in a good shift tonight. Um, so there's that. Um, well, we've been online for a little bit. Any final questions? I don't want to hold everybody up. I know you guys are really busy. I'm sure most of you out there are trying to make a little bit of side hustle money today, right now. Um, I want you to know that I'm cheering for you, and we don't have to agree on everything. And I realize I could be in the minority. If you were to ask my friend Sergio, my friend Matt, Lynn, the people I do drivers coast to coast with, I think they all feel differently. Well, I'm just thinking about all the drivers that I know. I'm like this lone guy out there by myself saying, "Don't do it. Don't go to the government to solve this problem." And I understand that. But even if we don't agree on things, know this: I care about you, and I'm cheering for you. And I want you to not only make as much money as possible, I want you to be safe, healthy. I want you to enjoy gig work. Um, it matters a lot to me. It really does. And I want to do more of these lives, so I love talking back and forth with each one of you. Zav, Danny, Paris, Mo, everybody else that joined into this chat. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me to get this all together. I created Tip You in the app because I wanted to build a community of drivers. There's so many negative people out there producing content, and for good reason. There's a lot of reasons to be negative, and there's a lot of people, showing funny videos of passengers in cars, and I just didn't feel that there was a community of drivers that just wanted to connect. So I have a lot of options available to you. The Facebook group is where most people tend to end up. The YouTube channel is great. You can connect with me on Twitter. Go to the Tip You in the App website. If you want to talk business, I have the LinkedIn profile. I do it all there. Medium, I share stories. Um, TikTok, I have some funny stuff on TikTok. I think it's funny. It's like dad joke funny, maybe on TikTok. So Tip You in the App, it's just a way for me to connect with you. I know that I really do care about you. I'm cheering for you. I want you to be safe, be well, and I'm going to hang up here, guys. Take care, guys. Bye.